When they say football is a tale of two halves, they're talking about that Newcastle and Nottingham Forest game because 4-1 for predominantly most of the game for it to end 4-3, and Nottingham Forest I think might even feel hard done by the results. Be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. Now, Nottingham Forest, I feel like when I watch them quite a lot during the season, they have these moments in the game where they can just switch off and concede one or two goals back to back. I mean, they were 1-0 up thanks to great pressing from Nottingham Forest to force an error out of a throw-in for Newcastle, and Callum Hudson-Odoi just hits it from far. Nick Pope's positioning is a bit unusual for that, but maybe he wasn't anticipating that one of his players would get dispossessed in their own third. However, being 1-0 up and then within close proximity and just back to back to back to back, they concede 4 goals within the space of 12 or so minutes. I mean, that is just, some people would say capitulation, but I don't call it capitulation because I don't think Nottingham Forest lost really control of the game, especially in the second half. And a lot of those goals that they did concede, I mean, the first goal that they concede is by the way, great finish by the youngster Miley. Amazing first touch and then left foot through the legs of two players into the bottom corner to get the equaliser for Newcastle. But I think some people might even argue that it shouldn't have even been a free kick in the first place, which actually led to that opportunity for Newcastle. I don't actually think Ola Aina got anything on Anthony Gordon in that instance for Newcastle to win that free kick. But again, each to their own. I guess that's how sometimes football is really about small margins and the decisions that can go against you or go for you. Now, again, like I said, when Forest do concede a goal, it tends to be consecutively back to back, and in this instance they concede 4 goals in the space of 12 or so minutes. Isaac with a great Panenka for the penalty, absolute rocket of a Panenka, by the way. Cells could not keep that out. I think it's because of the height and the power on the Panenka. But I just have to speak about who I think was probably the most influential for Newcastle. Of course, Isaac gets the headlines, 2 goals as well, 50 goals in the Premier League in 76 games. That's a great turnaround, guys. That's a great ratio. And I know so many people are caught up on this conversation of where is Isaac going to go in the summer, but I understand why Newcastle fans maybe don't want him to leave. I think, you know, if they're truly pricing him at 150 million, you are getting one of the most well-rounded centre forwards in modern football right now, in my opinion anyways, because even when he's not scoring, I think what he can do in this Newcastle system under Eddie Howe, his ability to kind of drift out wide to the left hand side in particular, go up against fullbacks, his ability one touch football to link up to play, which led to one of the goals for Newcastle. He can do it all and he can get on the score sheet. Isaac is, for me, one of the best strikers in European football right now. Of course, people are going to talk about a lot of other strikers, and rightfully so. Erling Haaland is a goal machine. Harry Kane is not slowing down. Lewandowski is just turning the clocks back. You got great number 9s, but for me, when you're talking about all-roundedness as a centre forward that can contribute to every element of the game, for me, Isaac is one of those guys. But I have to speak about what England have been lacking for some time. Lewis Hall, what a player. Gets an assist, created the most chances in the game, most touches, I think joint most touches. Getting forward, I realised, I don't know if this was a tactical tweak from Eddie Howe. I don't know if it was targeted, but Newcastle in the first half predominantly was targeting Nottingham Forest through their left channel, i.e. Lewis Hall up against Ola Aina. And I felt like in the second half, and after the 4th goal was actually conceded, Ola Aina was staying a lot back, because in transition, Newcastle are devastating. When you've got the pace on the wings like Anthony Gordon, I mean, Hall, Miley and Gordon on that left-hand channel together, phenomenal today. Creating chances, getting goals for Newcastle, being game changers essentially, especially in the first half. Because like I said, this game was a game of two halves in my opinion. But for what England have been lacking for so long, I think they've found it now in Hall. What a talent, not just going forward, but even defensively. When he was coming up against Alanga, when he was coming up against Ola Aina, when he was coming up against Gibbs White on the right, on that far channel, he was able to hold his own, and not just hold his own, but make the right call and the right decision at some points, especially in possession when Nottingham Forest were pressing. And Nottingham Forest are a team that press very well. You know, their energy levels are high getting forward. They can force errors out of especially trigger points in the opponents. So for them to be pressing Hall and for him to comfortably make the right decision at this age. A lot of young players at this age might not be able to do that. And that's why I think for me, he was the game changer for Newcastle, because it wasn't just what he was doing going forward, getting an assist, but like I said, also creating heaps of chances for the front line. But it's also what he was doing in defensive transition. Now, like I said, this was a game of two halves, because half time 4-1, you think, okay, Newcastle are going to come out and they're going to keep firing away. But I also want to say that a lot of the goals that Newcastle did score, some of it was down to luck. You know, there was a lucky deflection for one of the goals, sorry, from Alexander Isak as well. But like I said, it's also down to the fact that when Nottingham Forest concede goals in quick succession. However, what I liked about Nottingham Forest in particular, coming out in the second half, is that Newcastle, I feel like they underestimated Forest in the second half. They took their foot off the gas, and that is where things could have gone wrong had Forest equalised in that last minute. I mean, the last 3 minutes of the game was probably the most entertaining part of the half. But Nottingham Forest did not take their foot off the gas. They kept pressing, kept pushing, and from set pieces, they were able to create chances against a team that have a lot more players that are quite tall in stature. But even in the backline in particular, I don't think Milinkovic and Murillo, despite the fact that, you know, Forest conceded 4 goals, they never really lost control of the game. I think what they struggled to deal with, and maybe what was the game changer as well, or something that was quite influential for Newcastle, was Isak's ability to kind of stretch the back line. When you've got a striker that can stretch the back line and force one of your centre-backs out of position, I feel like it depends on how you can deal with that, and Nottingham Forest weren't really able to. But for me, Nottingham Forest didn't take their foot off the gas, and they kept pushing. They were just unfortunate maybe not to get that last minute equaliser. But they maybe, had it been, you know, had they tried to get Chris Wood a lot more integrated, especially into the deliveries into the box, because they were putting in a lot of deliveries. It wasn't finding Wood, but maybe it was finding Milinkovic, or it was finding Anderson. There was one particular moment when Callum Hudson-Odoi put in a phenomenal whipped cross in, and no one was able to get on the end of it. Nick Pope couldn't even get on the end of it when he came out to kind of punch it away. It's just those little moments, and that's why I say football is always about fine margins. It's always about fine margins. But walking away from this game, there's so many, I think, positives that Forest could definitely take away from this. But I also think tactically, Eddie Howe, in the first half in particular, got it spot on. Now, where it could have gone wrong for Newcastle is in the second half. Had they conceded last minute, I think they would have looked back at the fact that they took their foot off the gas in the second half and kind of allowed a lot more freedom for Nottingham Forest in possession, and it could have been a completely different story. But let me know your thoughts down below. Alexander Isak, welcome to the 50 club. He gets his 50 goals in the Premier League in 76 appearances, man. That's serious. Lewis Hall, what a player. England have a amazing young talent on their hands, and I think Nottingham Forest can keep their head up high, because despite the fact that they conceded 4 goals today, you know, they conceded 5 to Bournemouth not that long ago, I still think Forest are having a good season, and they are still in and around those top 4, top 5, top 6 conversations. But let me know your thoughts down below. Be sure to hit the like button, and if you are new here, please do subscribe.